Right, and we have some breaking news coming in on the Sabarimala row. The Devaswom board has changed its position on the entry of women of all ages inside the temple. And the board has now told the Supreme Court that they've decided to respect the original verdict of the Supreme Court that had allowed women of all ages to enter the shrine. My colleague Meenakshi Banja joining me on the phone line. Meenakshi, a U-turn by the Devaswom board which had earlier opposed the entry of women into the temple.
Well, that's right, and it is not unusual for parties to change or alter their positions from earlier stated positions, and this is what Justice Indu Malhotra also wanted to understand from the Devaswom board, to which Counsel for the Travancore Devaswom board has informed the Supreme Court that indeed there is an altered position now from the earlier stated position, where now the Devaswom board is of the opinion, the Travancore Devaswom board is of the opinion that women can't be excluded from any walk of life or basis physiological phenomena alone, and equality is the central theme of the Constitution. So now, post-lunch session in the Supreme Court, review open court hearings in the Sabarimala case, the Devaswom board has pitched for the Supreme Court to retain the original verdict.
Right, Meenakshi, now you have been tracking this case very, very closely. For the benefit of our viewers who are just joining us, could you just briefly summarize the position that parties have taken, the various stakeholders have been taking in this case since the morning, please?
Well, we have heard from a lot of parties to this case. There are a original of some 50-plus review petitions, which would turn out to be very voluminous and repetitive. So a lot of the parties will be submitting their arguments by way of a written statement. But surely we have heard from eminent senior counsels like Mr. V. Giri, like Abhishek Manu Singhvi. We have also heard from Mr. K. Parasaran, who have sought for the Supreme Court to have a relook at its original verdict. And the main theme of their arguments have hinged around 3 points of law, which is this. Number one, they're saying that it is not about untouchability, which is pertaining to caste. This is about freedom to practice one's religion, and freedom to practice one's religion as per the belief one has is something which is protected under Article 25 and 26 of the Constitution. That apart, they have also sought for the Supreme Court to have a relook at its original judgment on the grounds that common principles of rationality and irrationality does not really apply to religious practices. Hinduism is more diverse than practices and can't apply constitutional morality in terms of religion as a blanket rule. This has been the argument of Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi. But on the other hand, post-lunch session, we are hearing from parties who seek for the Supreme Court to retain the original essence of their judgment. We have heard from Indra Jaising, who is still contending or submitting. She's making a representation for two women, Bindu and Kanak Durga. These are the two women who had entered the sanctum sanctorum of the Sabarimala temple on the 2nd of January. And Indra Jaising is essentially telling the Supreme Court as to how a lot of these women who have made attempts to enter inside the temple are subjected to social exclusion, and she's citing the purification rituals that the temple authorities had indulged in subsequent to these two women entering the temple, and therefore them being treated as untouchables. So this is something which, again, has evoked some very sharply differing positions in the Supreme Court. But then ultimately, the final test and the prerogative will be the Supreme Court. We expect for the top court's constitution bench to reserve its verdict on these batch of pleas that are seeking a relook or an overhaul of the original judgment. Whether or not they've been able to bring out new grounds why the Supreme Court should overhaul its original judgment will be known once the Supreme Court makes its mind known on the subject.
Right, Meenakshi Banja, they're bringing us all those latest updates. We, of course, are going to track this case slowly and carefully and, of course, bring you all the latest updates. Thanks, Meenakshi, for joining us.